Hi, I'm Brooklyn of Project Casting, and today I'm going to tell you all the story about how I adopted a dog from Millie Bobby Brown while on the set of The Electric Slate.
I blink.
When the robots deviated from their assigned task,
So I had booked a day player role. It was 2 night shoots for Neurocaster Junkie on the set at The Electric Slate. When I arrived at base camp, I was guided by the second AD to my trailer. And when you get in there, they usually have like sides, which are like a small little script that looks about like this. On it, I remember seeing, well, first you're told to like, you get dressed and you put your wardrobe on before you go to hair and makeup. And I remember seeing, though, on the sides, Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown. On that night, it was just Millie that was there. I don't think Chris was. I think it was his double that was there. But on that night, Millie was there and the sweet, lovely lady that plays Cosmo. I remember looking at those sides, seeing Millie and being like, that's really exciting, but also I'm never going to see her, probably except for a few seconds before going on the actual set and them saying action, and then that's it. I was trained that this isn't a chance for you to get a photo op. This isn't a chance for you to try to, make a pitch to the A-lister, the one that's higher up on the call sheet. You were hired to play a role and do a good job and be coachable and listen to the director and act well. Like, that's the point, not to try to get a photo op. And so I knew that the chances and the likelihood of being able to actually converse with her or Chris were very unlikely. And I wasn't going to try to push it. I was going to be very professional. And so after getting back from hair and makeup, it was time to go from base camp to holding, which was actually the convenience store that you see her and Cosmo come out of in the film. And so in the convenience store, I was at the front by the door, and her people were in the back corner, which doesn't always happen. Usually you have very separate things, but it was also a night shoot. It was very cold and there was quite a distance, and she has a bodyguard and all that stuff. And so, I'm just keeping to myself, doing my thing. I didn't expect to be able to be part of the quick rehearsal, blocking rehearsal. And I definitely didn't expect to, if I was part of that, to be called into the same tent to go through the script with Millie and the Russo brothers and the lovely lady that plays Cosmo. It was really interesting to see how collaborative the Russo brothers were too. Like, there was a point while we were all in that tent going through the script for that scene where Millie was like, I don't know if this doesn't really feel right now that I'm saying it, or it was something to that effect, like just how once she was in that character and we were kind of running through it, there was a part where Millie was like, this feels a little dissonant, can we change it? And they were so collaborative. They're really open to tweaking and changing things to serve the story. As a aspiring filmmaker and an actress, that was something that I was like, okay, take a little note of that. Let's just put that away. When it was time to film, it was freezing. And since I was supposed to be a Neurocaster junkie that was strung out on her VR headset, I wasn't supposed to wear a lot, I'm not really worried about that as a Neurocaster junkie. I'm like locked into the virtual world. And so even though they gave me like hand warmers and foot warmers, I got so cold, but I was trying to be like a trooper about it and not really make a fuss. And they were also like the Russo brothers and Millie, they were all like, are you okay? Are you good? The hair and makeup, they're like, are you okay? Are you good? Do you need new hand warmers? Like, everybody was it was such a nurturing set to be on and a very personable set. But at one point we had done a few takes and we were getting further through the scene. I was getting colder and Millie was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, no, fine. And I didn't have there was a coat that was on the shopping cart full of the Neurocaster junkie stuff. And there was just this coat that was sitting on it. And she was like, are you sure you're okay? You look cold. And she's like, here. And she grabs it, she puts it over me and she's like, there. And then when they're ready to camera set, lights, action, right before that, then she took it off and put it back up there. So she was Millie was so sweet. So was Chris. They were both very, very loving, very personable. Both of them took the initiative to even have conversations with me and other cast and crew. They never felt like holier than thou. They didn't seem to be like, they never postured themselves like they were better than anybody else. And I just thought that was really cool. And also I wouldn't have faulted them for being distant and wanting to have alone time to go over the script and not talk to people, but they did. They were very personable. Also, when Millie got to set, she had her dog with her that she brought on, and I just thought that was so cool. And from that day, I was like, I'll know that my definition of success will be defined by when I can bring my dog onto set with my dog nanny, and it's okay. I won't get in trouble. But anyway, so later, once we finished that part of the scene, we went back to holding so that we could go back to base camp to break and get snacks and eat and all that fun stuff. But while waiting for the shuttle to come bring us all back to base camp, one of her assistants had earlier, I guess, heard me talking to another crew member about wanting to adopt a dog for my other fur baby, Rocky. Because Brocky at that time was a puppy, full of energy, and I could just tell, like, he needs a sibling. So while we were waiting for the shuttle to come, Millie comes over with her dog, and she's like, hey, I hear you're wanting to adopt a dog. And I was like, yeah. And I turn around and I show her the Pet Finder app. I was like, I'm literally filling out the application right now. And she's like, well, I have 13 dogs at my house, and you should adopt for me. We rescue them all out of... And, she was giving me the lowdown on it. I thought like maybe it would turn into something, maybe it wouldn't. Maybe I would just be put on to her people, and then that would be that. Because she does work with a rescue, Joey's friends. It's her rescue, but she's got a whole team behind it. All the animals are very well taken care of, very well loved. And so anyway, I thought, maybe it'll turn into something, maybe it won't. So we get back to base camp. I'm in my trailer, she's in hers. And I get a knock at the door, and it's either the first or second AD, and she's like, hey, Millie was saying you wanted to adopt a dog from her. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, she was wondering if you're okay now to go back to her trailer to look at some of the dogs she has. And I was like, yes. Of course, I hadn't run any of this by my now husband and fiance, but it worked out in the end. And so when I get to the trailer, it was so nice. And she even had like a little fireplace in it. But she was so personable and so sweet. She's like, oh, hi, Brooklyn. And she was like, okay, come sit over here. So she literally had a slideshow of all the dogs set up. And she asked, what I was looking for. I told her, after losing my last dog, an elderly dog, for 2 reasons, even though I want to rescue an elderly dog, there are 2 reasons why I couldn't do it. I had just lost my 16-year-old boy, my heart fur baby, Jack. He's my heart dog, and I just lost him like 6 or 9 months prior to adopting Rocky. And I just felt like it might be too much of a touch point for me, like it might trigger some things. And 2, Rocky at the time was a puppy, full of energy, and I just know that it would drive an elderly dog nuts. So I told her I needed a dog that was younger. It didn't have to be a puppy, but just younger. And she showed me her Destiny's Child litter that they had rescued from Alabama that had gone through quite a bit of abuse and before being rescued. And the 2 that were left were Beyonce and I think Kelly. I think the other one had just been adopted or someone was looking at her. And so I chose Beyonce. I would have chose Kelly as well, but I ended up picking Beyonce. She at the time I think was 3 or 6 months old. I can't remember. So she was still young, and she'd already had all her shots, all her things. Like Millie's team, they are very much like on it. Like I said, every animal is like very well cared for and kept up to date and maintained with all their shots and their health stuff. So, and that later that night after I chose Beyonce, or maybe it was the next morning, I was like, hey, so I'm just not telling my partner about this. Can you send, if it's not too much trouble, can you send a photo of Beyonce for him to see? And she was like, oh yeah, of course. And so she sent photos, and it was time to meet up. I met up with one of the people that's part of the rescue, but it was her that was on the phone and making the call. And yeah, it was so great that she could have very easily just put it all off on her people, but she didn't. She is a very loving and sincere person from what I could see. And I remember like at one point her being like, what are you gonna name her? And I was like, I'm thinking Ruby after my great grandma. And she's like, oh, Ruby, I love that. Bad accent, I'm sorry. Okay. But yeah, that is the story of how I adopted a dog while on the set of The Electric State from Millie Bobby Brown. And so Millie, if you are seeing this, thank you, because Ruby, formerly known as Beyonce, has just made all of our lives more bright and never boring. And Rocky thanks you because he annoys the ever-loving goodness out of her. And Ruby, I think, is the only one that has quite a high tolerance for Rocky and all his shenanigans. She never lets him get one over on. Like, she runs the household, and we're all thankful for it. So thank you.